4 years, a lone cowboy lived in complete silence, far from the nearest town, believing peace could only be found in solitude. He spoke to no one, trusted no one, and never imagined his quiet life would change. But one unforgettable evening, an unexpected visitor appeared at his cabin door. It was an Apache woman carrying a secret that would test his heart, challenge everything he believed, and lead them both on a journey neither of them could have imagined. What happened next became a story the frontier would never forget. The wide Arizona desert greeted each sunrise with quiet beauty. Golden light spread across the hills, gentle winds moved through the tall grass, and the distant calls of birds echoed across the open land. Far from the nearest town stood a small wooden cabin where Daniel Carter had lived alone for many years. Daniel was known as a dependable cowboy. Long ago, he had been part of the busy life of the frontier, helping neighbors, working cattle, and sharing stories around evening campfires. But as the years passed, he found himself longing for peace instead of noise. He chose a simple life where each day followed the same comforting routine. Every morning, he cared for his horses before walking through his small garden. He repaired fences, gathered firewood, and watched the changing colors of the desert as the seasons came and went. The quiet no longer felt lonely. It felt familiar. The people in the nearby town respected Daniel, though few truly knew him. He visited only when he needed supplies and always returned home before sunset. Friendly greetings were exchanged, but long conversations were rare. One warm afternoon, Daniel rode toward a natural spring hidden among tall cottonwood trees. It was his favorite place to collect fresh water before heading back to the cabin. As he approached, he noticed someone standing near the edge of the clear stream. It was a young Apache woman. She wore a traditional dress in soft earth colors, and her long dark hair was neatly braided. A woven bag rested beside her as she knelt to fill a small clay bottle with water. She looked tired from a long journey, yet there was calmness in her eyes. Daniel remained a respectful distance away. "I hope I am not disturbing you," he said kindly. The woman looked up, surprised by his gentle voice. "Not at all," she replied with a warm smile. "The spring belongs to everyone who treats it with care." Daniel smiled in return. "You look as though you have traveled far." "I have," she answered. "Farther than I expected." Sensing her weariness, Daniel pointed toward the trail that led to his cabin. "If you need a place to rest before continuing your journey, you are welcome to stay until morning." For a brief moment, the woman hesitated. Then she nodded with quiet gratitude. "My name is Ayanna," she said. "Daniel," he replied. As they began walking side by side through the fading afternoon light, Daniel could not explain why meeting this quiet stranger felt different from anything he had experienced in years. Neither of them realized that this simple walk toward a lonely cabin would become the beginning of a story neither would ever forget. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the cabin windows as Daniel stepped outside to feed his horses. To his surprise, Ayanna was already awake. She had swept the porch, gathered fresh water from the spring, and prepared a simple breakfast using herbs she had collected nearby. "You did not have to do all of this," Daniel said with a grateful smile. Ayanna smiled back. "My grandmother always taught me that kindness should be returned with kindness." As they shared breakfast, the conversation came easily. Daniel spoke about caring for the ranch and how the quiet desert had become his closest companion. Ayanna listened with genuine interest, never interrupting, as though every word mattered. Later that day, one of Daniel's horses returned from the pasture with a sore leg. Before Daniel could examine it, Ayanna gently approached the animal. She spoke in a calm voice while carefully checking its hoof. A small thorn had become lodged between the hoof and the ground. With steady hands, she removed it. The horse relaxed almost at once. Daniel watched in amazement. "You understand horses well," he said. "My family believed every living creature deserves patience," Ayanna replied. "When we listen carefully, they often tell us what they need." Over the next few days, Ayanna remained at the cabin. She helped gather firewood, tended the small garden, and filled the home with quiet warmth. The silence Daniel had treasured for so many years no longer felt empty. Instead, it was shared, peaceful, and comforting. One evening, as they watched the sunset paint the desert sky in shades of orange and gold, Daniel finally asked the question that had been on his mind. "What brought you so far from your home?" Ayanna looked toward the distant mountains. "I chose a different path than the one others expected for me," she said softly. "Not everyone understood my decision." She offered no further explanation. Daniel respected her silence. For the first time in many years, he realized he was looking forward to tomorrow, eager to hear another story, share another meal, and spend another peaceful day with the unexpected guest who had quietly begun to change his life. The days slowly turned into weeks, and Ayanna became a welcome part of life at the little ranch. Every morning, she and Daniel worked side by side before the desert sun grew too warm. They repaired old fences, watered the garden, and rode across the open hills to check on the horses grazing in the valley. Daniel noticed that he smiled more often than he had in years. The quiet that once surrounded his life no longer felt like a wall between him and the world. Instead, it became a peaceful space they shared together. On one afternoon, they stopped beside a small hill overlooking the wide desert. The wind gently moved through the tall grass as they watched a group of wild horses running across the distant plain. "It is beautiful here," Ayanna said. Daniel nodded. "I always believed I came here to be alone." She looked at him with a gentle smile. "And now?" He paused before answering. "Now I think I came here because I was waiting for the right person to find this place." Ayanna lowered her eyes, touched by his words. That evening, they sat outside the cabin watching the stars appear one by one. Ayanna spoke about her childhood, sharing happy memories of learning traditional songs from her grandmother and exploring the mountains with her family. Daniel listened with quiet admiration. When she finished, he shared his own story. He spoke of the years he had spent avoiding close friendships because he feared losing the people he cared about. Living alone had seemed easier than opening his heart again. Ayanna gently placed her hand over his. "You cannot protect your heart by keeping it closed forever," she said softly. Daniel looked into her eyes and realized she was right. In that quiet moment beneath the endless desert sky, he understood that the greatest peace he had ever searched for was not found in solitude. It was found beside the woman who had walked into his life without warning and filled his silent world with hope. Before the night came to an end, Daniel made a promise to himself. The next sunrise, he would tell Ayanna what she truly meant to him. The next morning, Daniel invited Ayanna to walk with him to the quiet spring where they had first met. The water flowed gently over smooth stones, just as it had on the day their paths crossed. Daniel took a deep breath and smiled. "When I chose this life, I believed silence was all I needed," he said. "Then you came into my life and showed me that peace is even greater when it is shared." Ayanna looked at him with quiet emotion. "I never expected to find a home so far from my own," she replied. "But every day here has reminded me that home is not only a place. It is the people who welcome you with kindness." Daniel reached into his pocket and held out a simple silver ring. "I do not know what tomorrow will bring," he said, "but I know I want to face it with you. Will you marry me?" Tears of happiness filled Ayanna's eyes as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. They stood together beside the spring, grateful for the unexpected journey that had brought them together. The quiet cowboy who had once hidden from the world had finally found something more valuable than solitude. He had found someone to share every sunrise, every challenge, and every joyful moment that lay ahead. A few weeks later, Daniel and Ayanna were married beneath the shade of a large cottonwood tree near the cabin where their journey had begun. It was a simple ceremony attended by a few neighbors who had come to admire the kindness and respect they shared. As the seasons passed, their small ranch became known as a welcoming place. Travelers were always greeted with a warm meal, a friendly conversation, and a safe place to rest before continuing their journeys. Daniel and Ayanna worked side by side each day, caring for their horses, tending the garden, and helping anyone who needed a hand. The laughter that now filled the ranch was something Daniel had never imagined during the years he spent alone. The silence he once treasured had not disappeared. It had simply become peaceful moments shared with someone he loved. One evening, as the sun slowly disappeared behind the distant hills, Daniel and Ayanna stood together on the porch, watching the golden light stretch across the desert. Daniel smiled and quietly said, "I spent years searching for peace in solitude. I never realized that the greatest peace would come from sharing my life with you." Ayanna gently held his hand as they looked toward the endless horizon. Sometimes life changes not because we search for something new, but because we open our hearts to the unexpected. And from that single choice, a lonely cabin became a home filled with hope, kindness, and lasting happiness. Thank you for watching this heartfelt journey of Daniel and Ayana. Their story reminds us that peace is not found by shutting the world out, but by opening our hearts to kindness, trust, and the people who walk into our lives when we least expect it. If this story touched your heart, please support the channel by giving this video a like and subscribing for more emotional Wild West stories filled with unforgettable characters, meaningful journeys, and inspiring endings. Be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss a new adventure. Now we would love to hear from you. Do you believe one unexpected meeting can change a person's life forever? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every comment and enjoy hearing your perspective. If you enjoyed this story, share it with your friends and family who love classic cowboy stories and inspiring tales from the American frontier. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Until our next story, take care of yourself, keep believing in the power of kindness, and remember that sometimes the greatest blessings arrive when we least expect them.